Did HYBE just buy SM Entertainment? Does this mean that HYBE will control SM Entertainment? Did Lee Sooman do something illegal by selling his shares to HYBE without the consent of the CEOs and other SM Entertainment officials? Is HYBE monopolizing the K-pop industry? For us to really understand the implications of Lee Sooman's transfer of shares to HYBE, we first need to understand a public company's business structure first. Hi! Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. I would really appreciate it. And of course, share them when you can. Now back to the video. What does a shareholder do? What is the power they hold? Shareholders are often described as the owners of the corporation, and that is partially true. They own part of the company, and that gives them the power and/or benefit of voting for the board of directors and on major business decisions. The board of directors set the general direction of the company, but not the day-to-day operations. But let's go to that later. Shareholders vote on matters such as who will become the members of the board, approving a merger or acquisition, approving a stock compensation plan, executive salaries and benefits, major shifts in company goals, fundamental corporate structure and changes, approving stock splits, dividend payments. The voting rights of equity shareholders don't extend to issues concerning day-to-day operations or management issues like hiring and firing, budget allocation, product development, and others. The management team of a company makes these decisions throughout the year. Shareholders agreement. Every company would usually have a shareholders agreement, and this will dictate the terms of ownership, process of selling or buying shares, and rules on just about any possible scenario that could affect business direction. So before going public, SM Entertainment and other entertainment companies like YG, HYBE, and JYP, actually just about any corporation in the world, set these procedures on how shareholders can let go of their share. The shareholders agreement also lays down the rules on when a shareholder must let go of their share. Majority shareholders and buyouts. For SM, YG, JYP, HYBE, and other companies, the majority shareholders are the founders. Now, if any of them wanted or had to sell their shares the way Lee Sooman did, the shareholders agreement dictates how they can and should go about it. Different companies have different rules, but there are basic requirements dictated by the law. Usually, in order for a buyout, also known as acquisition, to occur, some things must happen, including an outside entity must acquire over 50% of a target company's outstanding shares, or have the votes of at least 50% of the current shareholders who will vote in favor of the buyout, or both. This seemed to what have happened with the deal between HYBE and Lee Sooman based on the statement of HYBE, which reads, HYBE holds the right to claim the remaining 868,948 shares of SM Entertainment stock that Lee Sooman holds. The purchase will be executed after the approval of the acquisition of SM Entertainment by HYBE. So they haven't really bought all of the shares yet, at least not when they released the statement announcing that they are going to buy the entire share, because according to their statement, it seems that they bought the maximum that they can buy from Lee Sooman in order to start the process of the acquisition. And I say that because according to their statement, and I quote, through this acquisition, it was not possible to buy all the shares from the minority shareholders because acquiring the major shareholder's share would be subject to a notice of business combination report. Therefore, the contract for acquisition was signed using the largest number of shares available for transfer by the major shareholders. So they're saying that they can't buy everybody else's share, because that actually will require a legal process. So when major players of a certain industry acquire something, you can't just do it like that. You need to seek approval from the court, because the court will ensure that there's no monopoly and things like that. So they're saying that they purchase the shares from the majority shareholder because that's the route that they can legally take without having to go to the courts. But they seem to have gotten the approval because continuing the statement, I quote, "After securing a sufficient number of shares, the combination of HYBE and SM Entertainment was approved, and after that, we will purchase the remaining shares from Lee Sooman. The contract was created in a way where this claim can be put into practice." So they seem to have gotten the approval. Now they will purchase the rest of the shares. And the rest of the statement is just saying that they made sure that this is like a legal thing, that they made sure that this is implementable. There's no questions to be asked. They did everything by the book. So they followed the company bylaws, basically. When do buyouts or acquisitions happen? Remember that a shareholder has duties to the company. So you don't want to just allow anyone to take over their share, because that would mean they are also taking over their shareholders' duties. You aren't really sure if the person taking over has the abilities needed or whether or not they share the vision of the company. So basically, any situation where the shareholder is unable to fulfill his duties could trigger a buyout, including death or medical disability, or when the shareholder actually walks away voluntarily. Could be pre-agreed terms or situations in which a shareholder's financial stability is affected, such as divorce, bankruptcy, or debt collection. Because if the share is sequestered as part of debt payment, then whoever holds the share will now fulfill the duties of the former shareholder. In Lee Sooman's situation, it seems that he had been shopping around for a buyer for some time now. So this could be a voluntary one, but then he failed to find one. There were offers from different companies, including Kakao. So the question is, why did he not just choose one? This is speculation, but I think this is a company that he built. He knew that whoever buys his share will have control over the direction of the company. He probably wanted someone who understands his vision or whose vision he actually respects. Also, he's a businessman. He wanted the best bang for his buck. What is a tender offer? A tender offer is often mentioned in acquisition. It just means an active and widespread solicitation by a company or third party to purchase a substantial percentage of a company's securities. In this situation, then the third party would be HYBE. They're buying shares from Lee Sooman in SM Entertainment. Usually, tender offers are higher than market value. We know that HYBE was one of those who made an offer to buy Lee Sooman shares. At least that's what the media reported, but their offer was supposedly rejected. We also know that Lee Sooman did not like Kakao's purchase of more than 9% of the company's share. What we don't know is whether or not this entire thing, HYBE's purchase of share from Lee Sooman, is an ongoing negotiation, or was it motivated by Lee Sooman's displeasure with Kakao's purchase of shares? We know that he's actually suing SM. My guess is that it is a combination of both. It is that they have actually been talking, but this is speculation, but after the purchase of Kakao, of 9% of SM shares, that pissed off Lee Sooman and decided to pursue his deal with HYBE. And the removal of royalties actually played a huge part. Again, pure speculation. But I think from the beginning, because HYBE's name was actually one of those floated as one of the companies that were trying to buy the shares of Lee Sooman, I think one of the things that sort of halted that entire talk and negotiation is that Lee Sooman wanted royalties and HYBE didn't want to give it. HYBE, just based on what little that we know, it seems that they're not the kind of company that would put in money into something if it's not going to generate more revenues. And giving Lee Sooman his royalties won't generate any revenue for them. So I think that's one of the things that they didn't want in that contract. And Lee Sooman wanted it, and then maybe because he was so pissed at what happened with Kakao, he decided, okay, if that's the only thing that we need to remove just so we can push through with this deal, then let's do it. Now for the million-dollar question, how can HYBE exercise control over SM? As mentioned in the beginning, the majority shareholders can appoint a director or directors. And here is a very important information. The board has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the shareholders. Let me say that again. The board has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the shareholders. And that is how HYBE can exercise influence over SM. The exact responsibilities of directors are governed by the company's articles of incorporation, but the fundamental responsibility of a board is to provide leadership and oversight so the organization can reach its goals and achieve its mission. Other board of directors' responsibilities may include hiring and settling the compensation of the CEO or the executive director, adopting policies to address conflict of interest, and shaping the organization's culture, improving the organization's strategic focus and effectiveness. Usually, the CEO is a member of the board. And a board sometimes has a president, vice president, treasurer, a secretary. Sometimes there is directors for specific departments like director for talent development, director for distribution, director for intellectual properties. But for the duties and responsibilities to not overlap, the duties must be defined by the company bylaws. When the director or directors appointed by HYBE take their seats, they can then implement changes to steer the direction of the company. However, he cannot make unilateral decisions. But remember that HYBE wouldn't have been able to purchase the shares without the approval of majority of the major shareholders. That means other shareholders are behind this move. So the directors appointed by other shareholders can then support the director or directors appointed by HYBE. Does this mean that HYBE will now control the careers of EXO, Aespa, Red Velvet, NCT, and others? Well, HYBE will have control over the general direction of SM. Yes, it's natural for the board to choose a CEO that will be consistent with their vision. In SM's case, they already have two CEOs. So the board will then expect the two CEOs to run the company consistent with their vision. But the director doesn't hire and fire the managers. They don't approve and disapprove songs or choreographies. They are there for the business side of things and for the general direction. Now, if the managers appointed to manage the careers of SM talents don't yield good financial results, it is the CEO's head on the line. And the CEO reports to the board of directors, who has, repeat after me, fiduciary duty to promote the interest of the shareholders. So when the board sets the general direction, it is actually the CEO's and the manager's obligation to lay down the specifics. They need to reach their goals or they get fired. But if you are imagining a slew of HYBE personnel walking into SM and pushing people out of their chairs and desks, and Aespa, NCT, EXO, and others being suddenly produced by producers of HYBE, that is not what will happen. Eventually, I could imagine the company steering direction to be consistent with HYBE's vision. But I don't think HYBE will fire everyone and replace them with their own people. So, two names actually were floated as possible board of directors that will be appointed by HYBE in SM. Mini Jin, as you know, she used to be with SM. She's now with HYBE. She has her own label, Adore, and is managing New Jeans. And then the other guy is Bang Cheok himself. So it would be interesting if both of them would actually end up being a member of the board of directors in SM. But it's natural for the board, of course, to want to recommend their own CEO. But it doesn't seem, for SM's case, they already have a CEO, and they don't seem to be the kind of company, or at least HYBE, Lee Sooman doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that would fire everybody and just take over a company. He seems to be the kind of guy that would look at his resources, the resources that he has, and will try to make the most out of it. So I think they will stick it out with the two CEOs. But of course, the two CEOs will actually have to act in accordance with what they will be agreeing with the board of directors. So the board of directors will be setting the strategy. So they will set out the general strategy. They will set the targets for the CEO, but it would be the CEO's job to implement that. So they can't make the CEO do something he doesn't like. They can't make them hire or fire somebody. They can make recommendations. Now, can they pressure him into doing something, do some political moves so that he will do what they want? Yeah, of course, that's always possible. But the CEOs will still have to call the final shot. And the board is there to set the general strategy, but at the end of the day, it will be the CEO and the managers and the workers that will actually execute the strategy that they will set out. I will be able to exercise some strategic direction, but the CEOs and the managers will be the ones that will set out that will decide on the tactics and will do the execution. It's interesting. This whole thing is interesting. SM is such a legacy in Kpop. They started this whole training system, the business design itself, which is so different from how US is doing it. So, but they have been lagging behind in the last couple of years. So it would be interesting to see how the new blood, which is the new kid in the block, which is HYBE, for HYBE to be able to infuse their youth in there and see what's gonna happen. I mean, look at it. Ever since Lee Sooman went on a break, Aespa has not had any comeback. So it seems like, to a certain degree, the company seems to, maybe they're still reshaping or whatever, but hopefully this takeover, this acquisition will inject some new air, new oxygen in the company, and they will be able to bring themselves back to life. So as you know, I run my own business. So when something like this happens, yeah, I look at it from a fan perspective, but most importantly, I look at it from a business perspective. I like understanding their strategy, why they do something, why they're not doing something, observing the change in the target market, the entire industry itself. And of course, I look at it from a marketing perspective. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's see what's going to happen. And I hope you are too. And I would love to hear your opinion, though. I would love to know what you think of this entire acquisition, this buyout. Please leave them in the comment section below. I'm very interested in what you guys have to say. But of course, please be respectful. And of course, you can get in touch with me in any of the social media links that you see on your screen right now. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button and share when you can. Thank you. Till next time.